I think we have to start because there's 1 o'clock and that's the time for the big day today. So Enrique, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introducing me, Renata. This is Enrique Ordech. I am the president of a Global Communication Institute. I'm honored to welcome you all to the 19th Symposium of Global Communication, named as Public Relations in Place Branding After COVID-19, the Lithuanian Narrative. This started, we had the preliminaries on Wednesday, and the 3 top teams were picked out of the 9, and now we have Team 2, which we obviously say hi, Team 2, Team 3, and Team 4, who are going to be presenting today. I just want to say a few things. I want to say this is a project where we learn by immersion. It's a so intensive collaborative project where we involve 15 countries from 4 continents, and it's obviously an intercultural experience in the public relations world. So this is the backbone of our project. But I don't want to be don't want to talk too much, because here we have the honor to have our chairman, the chairman of Global Communication Institute and our founder. And so I wanna give the word to 2 very important people here. One is Volker Stotz, chairman of Global Communication Institute, and later Avril Gordon, our global team mentor and vice president of Global Communication Institute. One is placed and based in Berlin, and the other one is in Auckland, New Zealand. So the floor is yours, Dr. Volker Stotz. Thank you for making this happening after many years.
Thank you, Enrique. Are the guests also in this round? Then I would like to welcome first our guests, and then the students, and then my colleagues, and particularly you, Enrique, and my colleagues. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to open this unique Zoom symposium. It is, I guess, the first really global symposium after 17 various local symposiums in different countries of the world, 4 in Abu Dhabi, 3 in Barcelona and Palma de Mallorca, and 2 in Lisbon, and the others in the various places of our university, Bangalore or Borneo, Savarak, a couple of years ago. However, this meeting is the first global meeting because it's digital. We would have loved to go to Lithuania and to Vilnius and to get known to the university, but this was not possible due to the corona crisis. But maybe some of them can do it, and I promise I will be also do it, if possible, then in August, and hope to see some of them. I would like to thank you all, but particularly the host, Renata, who has done a lot of work in order to make this meeting feasible and possible. And of course, our president, Enrique, and our vice president, Avril from New Zealand, and the full board for making this meeting today possible. I would like to give you a little glance of the GlobCom idea, very little, with a bundle of stereotypes in Europe. You know, what is the European heaven? And have you ever asked yourself this question? Well, heaven is if the Brit is a policeman, the French, the cook, and who doesn't like the French cuisine, the Italian, the lover, well, I can't judge it, and the German, the technician, and the Swiss is in this heaven in this European heaven, the organizer. But let us come to the hell. The hell is, we certainly will agree, but only as a stereotype, if the Brit is the cook and the Swiss the lover, the Italian the organizer, and the French the technician, and the German the policeman. So that is the European hell. We all shall agree that stereotypes like this, good or bad, are shaping in some way up the image of a country and of the people. But one thing is very certain, exciting and fascinating. Our world is full of diversity. And I think that is great because that's why the world is really exciting. As intercultural communicators, we have to understand diversity. We have to understand their specific concepts, their feelings, and also their actions, with the only aim of communicating successfully and understandable around the world. So in this view, there's only one sentence which I would like to make about GlobCom. GlobCom is practicing intercultural communication, and we are led with that by a great work of Alexander von Humboldt. He was a great researcher 150 years ago in the middle of the 19th century. He was saying at that time, and I think that is more than actual, he was saying the most dangerous world vision is the world vision of those who never saw the world. And shouldn't we pay much attention to this word also today around the world, from Asia to Europe and America and New Zealand and Australia. Thank you very much. In this sentence, with this sentence, I wish you a successful meeting and further successful meetings of GlobCom Digital. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Volker Stotz. We give 1 minute of time to our global team mentor, Ariel Gordon. I'm Vice President of the Global Communication Institute.
Yeah, hello, everybody. It's evening here in New Zealand, and welcome to the conference. Just want to say that everyone's worked really hard. It's very exciting working with 15 universities, with 2 people from every university in a team, making up 30 people in a team, all of different nationalities. And we have about 9 teams running, and we've got the finalists now, and the team leaders have worked really hard with their deputies, pulling the teams together. They're dealing with culture, they're dealing with technology, and they're dealing with trust, which is very different in a virtual team. So it's a very exciting time. The team leaders have pulled this together and have done an absolutely brilliant job. Whether they are the finalists or not, they've all equally worked, and I think they have huge congratulations to all of them. And it's been a great pleasure as team mentor to be seeing how they've progressed and how they've really grown in this whole project. They've become global communicators in 3 months, which is very impressive, and led their teams to be the same. So thank you very much for participating. And we're very excited at watching your final presentations. Thank you, and I hand back to Enrique. Who is muted. Enrique, you're muted.
So I will shortly introduce the program for today, and Enrique maybe then later will say a few words. So shortly, in a few minutes, we will start the discussion about the changes in the field of PR, due to COVID-19. Then after the discussion, I think we will have 1 to 2 minutes for the coffee break, and then we will go to the finals of GlobCom 2020. I think that that's important to say that all the events, the discussion and the finals would be in the same room. So if you want, you can stay, not leaving the room to change, I don't know, the place, the atmosphere. At 2 o'clock, we will start finals. We will have finals for at least 2 hours, and then around 4:15, we will be back to this room with the list of the finalists, not the finalist, the winner, and that would be the closing ceremony as well of the GlobCom 2020. This program is shortly now presented. You can find this program in GlobCom project Facebook and as well on the faculty's, communication faculty's webpage. And let's start the day. And now I want to introduce to you our discussants and the moderator of that discussion, Jolanta Gužaitė-Quintus, my colleague from Vilnius University. She is very bright professional with big experience in the field of PR from different perspectives. She worked for PR agencies for 20 years. Then she was a senior advisor to the President of the Republic of Lithuania. So Jolanta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Renata. Hello, everybody, and hello, young professionals. I have heard that you will become professionals in 3 months, but I'm sure that after working during your studies and preparing all the projects, we can call you for sure young professionals. And to continue with a beautiful idea which was shared by the Dr. Walker, that the most troublesome vision is of those who did not see the world. We can reinterpret it and say it is quite a troublesome vision of those who did not see crisis, who did not see pandemic, and we see nowadays what the governments are doing, business doing, also people, each of us personally, we are affected by the COVID. So of course, it also gives lots of questions for the future. And we have today a very nice global representation of expertise from the academic field, also from the business field. And I would like to introduce them. And I hope that the participants of the discussion will wave back. So after the short presentation, we will have maybe 15 minutes of every participant will present their insights into the situation. And we will have also a chance afterwards to discuss ideas, insights, experiences. I really encourage students and everybody who is participating to share your questions on a chat and later to participate actively during the discussion. So let's start with our presenters today. And Gabriela Sherenina, she is Public Affairs and Communication Manager from the Baltics Coca-Cola. Gabriela, are you there? Can you say hello? Okay.
Can you hear me now? I'm here.
Yeah, Gabriela.
Oh, hi. Great.
Great, hello. Also, we have Daniel Silberhorn. He is working for the University of Erfurt. Daniel, are you okay?
Yes, hello, and a very, very warm welcome to everybody from Germany to GlobCom, our final round. Very glad to be here.
Great, beautiful. Lena Yakuchonen, also my colleague from Lithuania, Vilnius University, also from business field. Lena, she was working for 20 years in PR, and for 10 years, she was the head of the biggest insurance company, the head of communications. Lena, are you with us today?
Yes, I am here. Nice to see you all. Greetings.
Great. And now we move to America. David Gersop Richards from the University of Emerson, from the college. David, do you hear us?
I do. Welcome. Good morning from very early here in Boston, Massachusetts.
Great. We also have Ranjini Rao joining us from India, from Institute of Journalism and Mass Communication. Ranjini, are you with us?
Hi. Can you hear me?
And Dr. Katerina Wolf from the Curtin University in Australia. Katerina.
Hello everyone, a good evening from Perth.
Great, so we are all here, and I would like to start actually with the insights about the crisis the whole world is experiencing right now. And a pandemic as such, it's once in a century experience. It's also reflects so much how the governments are operating, businesses are operating, media, and as people, how do we feel in this very extraordinary circumstances? Daniel, you have your presentation looking into the global crisis, and you can also draw certain conclusions to the COVID crisis, how it affects the government decisions. What does it mean long-term perspective? So could you please tell us a little bit?
Yes, of course. Very happy to. Thank you. And in the midst of this crisis we are going through, something truly amazing happened. Something that showed me how brilliant we as humans can actually be, especially in the face of such a crisis. And it also gives me quite a bit of hope for the big crisis that we are all working with and have to deal with. As a global community, especially relevant for us as a global community here. But what I mean, of course, is like climate change. And what I saw, like on the big scale, or what every one of us saw on the big scale, that companies, big companies like Apple and Google, they joined forces, or McDonald's helped Aldi with their workforce. And please, everyone else, you mute your microphones, please. Who's not speaking? Thank you so much. So we have the big corporate world really standing together in solidarity and uniting, and companies changing production to produce face masks and medical devices. So there was a lot going on, and on a small scale as well. People on individual levels, they found solidarity, helped each other, went shopping for elderly people, found new ways to express themselves, made art in front of elderly homes to entertain elderly people. So there's a big energy and big will and big solidarity in the middle of such a crisis to innovate, to stand together and to do something around the globe. And I find this totally fascinating, and it gives me a lot of hope, especially as in mid-April, we also saw companies, big brands, unite as well with politicians and think tanks and trade unions to call for what they said will be or has to be a green recovery. Yeah, our economies hit quite hard. But people are thinking about when we go out of this, we need to be better, yeah, build back better. This is awesome. This is a lot of energy. Just the same energy we saw from all of you, dear students, in the presentations. So we know you have what it takes. That's wonderful. The only thing is we may need to look at our communications. How do we speak about climate change? Because we often operate with apocalyptic images and big stuff, and it's all overwhelming. We have to learn from the COVID-19 crisis that we need to make manageable what you have to face in the climate change, to make things small, to make things understandable, to answer the questions for people, what is in it for me? So everybody knows this is not just about some future generation, it's about us, and it's a good life we can have now. So, and we as a global community of communicators, we can play a major part in there. And I know everybody of you students who are listening, you will be part of that.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing with us your insights, also your enthusiasm for the energy which is around. That's true. The energy is such a powerful thing. You also have mentioned solidarity, and it's amazing what the people can do when they tackle the biggest problems together. And we have Gabriela joining us from the Baltic Coca-Cola. And of course, it's a very big corporation. And they had very concrete actions during crisis. They did concrete actions that we can all look into it and see how it works. So Gabriela, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be with you today. And I think that this COVID-19 pandemic is really not only testing our readiness to act in crisis conditions, but is showing clearly the true values of organizations and how sustainable they are in general. So I can give several examples of our company, what we did during the pandemic, and we had three clear priorities. The first was and still is health and safety of our people, business continuity and support to communities. Very, very intensive internal communication we had during these couple of months, and it still continues. It still continues on the group and our Poland and Baltics business unit level via emails, newsletters, magazines, video town halls. We have special internet information hub with a Q&A platform, and the goal is to keep our people well informed and safe. Of course, in parallel, a lot of work done externally. So we try to support our communities as much as possible. And in Lithuania, only our system, our Coca-Cola system, donated more than 40,000 liters of mineral water and other drinks to our national hospitals and state border guards, and the Vilnius Mobile Testing Center as well. So huge support from the day one. There was financial support as well. Our company dedicated 100,000 euros to our Lithuanian medical movement, so they would be able to buy medical equipment like masks and other what they need. But what I'm really proud to say is how our employees, our people reacted, because this COVID-19 is an issue, is a great challenge, not only to the organizations. Definitely, this is a #1 issue for the people. So our employees, they dedicated their own time, the working day time, to volunteer in food banks. And what is the beauty here? Because they not only took a risk to be there in this pandemic time, to risk their health, but they did this in the very, very intensive working days between the calls. We work with MI team, so the whole days are like full of calls, full of tasks, and a very stressful atmosphere. So they volunteered all over the Lithuania in different cities, and not only themselves but the family members as well. So what I wanted to say that these COVID times, they are really like a huge test for everyone, not only for their resilience, but sustainability in general. And all these activities, what we do in the normal times in sustainability area, they're important, especially important in crisis, because this is kind of payoff. We see the result what we did before in these crisis times. We are strong and we are ready to help communities, people, and our company as well. So just a very short brief from from my side, maybe for the other insights.
Thank you, Gabriela. I think we really can see from Coca-Cola example that having a sustainability program as a long-term basically value in your company, it helps a lot during crisis. And you have so many challenges. You have to speak to your employees, and you also have the community around you. Well, your example shows that being ready for anything that can happen. We also know that in PI industry, Coca-Cola went through so many crises, so I'm sure that you have accumulated already so much experience and you are simply ready for anything that hits a company. That's beautiful. And actually, as every crisis, it can be a very big challenge, and it also can be an opportunity. And my colleague Lina Kuchonina, she was working for the Ergo company, also now looking into the skills that communication people need during when the world is changing so fast and we are becoming more and more virtual creatures. So Lina, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jolanta. You know, last month I'm having many discussions with communication and PR professionals and business leaders. And based on that, I've prepared a summary of challenges and opportunities for communication in the face of COVID-19. So to save time, I'll focus on key messages. Let's start with positive things, opportunities. In the face of today's crisis, we see an increased importance of communication. Today, communication is more important than ever before, and the role of communication professionals has been elevated. And we'll see communicators as the key players in helping businesses and communities to manage this situation in the long term as well. And perhaps one of the most positive things that will come from the global pandemic, as Gabriela also mentioned, is an increased understanding of the value of employee communication and engagement. As well, it's a brilliant test of leadership. This is an opportunity for companies' leaders to remain relevant and to demonstrate care and leadership, as all need evidence of strong leadership to build trust. And employees, people look to leaders to lead, not to manage. And the situation as well presents an opportunity to experiment and try new tools and technologies. For example, my previous company I have worked for, Ergo Insurance company in Lithuania, has created a special radio program for its employees. In this radio program, people got news on the situation or a piece of advice from a psychologist. As well, they have been deeply involved in the creation of this radio program. They took interviews, they shared their insights, or they even had possibility to order the music in this radio program. As well, it's a great opportunity for organizations to strengthen relations with media and position organizations by explaining the impact of virus it has on the organizations and the measures they have implemented for their employees. And some words about challenges I found. The first challenge I would like to mention is that employees are getting pandemic-related information from social media at the same time as employers. It means that companies are forced to react to new information and make decisions in real time while attempting to manage misinformation and rumors. And one of the biggest challenges I see for companies is to communicate at a time when the company itself doesn't have all the answers. And today, people are changing their habits, including where they get the news and information. So brands will have to reevaluate where they can reach their audiences. And last but not least, communication challenges are huge, not only because there is no recovery inside, but because we don't know where the button is yet. So shortly from my side, if you have some questions, looking forward to them later.
Thank you, Leda. You're absolutely right. We don't know where the bottom is yet. It's actually good when something of such scale as pandemic happens to have thinking, I don't know, but I will look into it, I will try to understand, and I will act accordingly. And you have also mentioned that companies, actually the role of the communication is obvious now. We see how much it is important on personal level to speak to our families, on professional level to be inside the organization, also in talking with media. And the role of media during crisis, it's huge. And we see very, very different scenarios developing. So I would like to focus a little bit more on the role of public relations, dealing with the media, and we can share with David experience from the United States. Also, Ranjini, it would be very interesting later to listen to your insights about India. So David, please, the floor is yours. Let's look into media relations nowadays.
Thank you. Thank you. So we just heard a bit about opportunities and challenges, and we've heard about the audience and how the audience has changed. So a lot more people are staying at home, a lot more people working from home. That means that screen times are way up. It also means that drive times are way down. So the media that we're getting is changing. Where we're getting our news is changing, and how we're getting our news. So we're seeing shifts within the media being made instantly. There are layoffs and cutbacks at certain news media, and there's growth at others, and that trickles down through their storytelling, through the reach, through all the opportunities that come through that. We spend, as communicators, we spend a lot of time thinking about audience and how the audience has changed. But what we haven't really spent a lot of time talking about or thinking about is how the actual day-to-day lives of media have changed. I've been talking about weathermen lately and how bad I feel for the local weather guy or weather person. And it's because there's no sports. A lot of news covers tragedy and accidents, car accidents and fires and all this sort of stuff. Well, people are home, so when their houses catch on fire, they put them out. They're not driving on the road as much, so there's not nearly as many accidents. So basically, it falls on the weather guy to eat up a lot of time on the news. And these are small shifts that are happening. Some interesting opportunities that I didn't really I didn't foresee, but that I saw come out of this is that there are a number of brands, especially B2B brands, that have a challenge communicating what their product and service is, because they sell to bigger companies, and in order to get press coverage, a camera, video, you have to go inside a factory, or you have to open up something because they make a chip. They don't make the computer, or they make a robot that moves boxes. They don't, and the press is not allowed in these areas. But suddenly, the press is stuck at home. Interviews are happening not on the premises of businesses or on the street. Interviews are happening on Zoom. So the savvy brands that can get B-roll, that can have footage of their of their robot, of their chip, of their whatever it is that they can't normally get press for, suddenly there's opportunities because you've got all this extra bandwidth, if you will, that reporters need to fill. A lot of them are stuck at home, not going out there, and they're doing all of this virtually. So if you can put on a silver platter your stories, your media, and hand this digitally by email, or Dropbox, whatever, it makes the brand's job easier, it makes the reporter's job easier, and suddenly brands and companies that weren't able to necessarily get press coverage before, as long as there's some sort of relevancy, newsworthiness, whatever, they can get press much easier. So that's an opportunity that I've seen kind of arise through the ashes here. I'd also like to talk just briefly about the cycles of crisis. So, there's what we're seeing with COVID is no different than most other crisis situations that most of the professionals sitting in this chat room have seen. There's these cycles of things happen. The crisis hits, there's panic, people don't understand, they turn to the media for information, and there's this news cycle of, oh my, like, how do you stay safe? What do you do? Where do you even get like food and water, all the basics, like the Maslow hierarchy. That cycle is now coming to an end, and the new cycle is starting, and that is the new normal. As businesses reopen, as people go back to work, it's different. People don't, and what that new normal looks like. And now I think that the savvy brands, the really good communicators, what makes the great communicators separate from the good communicators, are the ones that are thinking ahead and saying, how does my brand, how does my company fit into the horizon of what that new normal looks like, and what are the stories that we can be telling, and what should we be doing to prepare for that? Thank you.
Thank you, David, for sharing with us your experience from working with the business organizations and also looking into the different stages of the crisis. You have mentioned innovations that companies present even during difficult times, and they want to have the world to know about it. And it's very difficult when you have such a one big topic every day as COVID, but it's not impossible. It's not mission impossible actually to get attention of media also during crisis. And Ranjini, you were mentioning about the positive outcomes of COVID. So could you please share with us your ideas? How do you see the situation from your country, from your experience, please?
Thank you, Yolanta. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here today. So nice to see all the familiar faces, and wish all the finalists the very best, the best team win. So basically, here in India, what has happened is that the media, to a large extent, had to step in, because they now have a high individual obligation to truth, to tell people the truth, to frequently communicate with people, which in many ways our government unfortunately has failed us. Starting with how the lockdown was first announced, it was just a blatant, all sweeping, which brought everything to a grinding halt. And over 90% of India's workforce is the informal workforce, or the daily wages earners, who were really badly affected by this. So we had this on our hands because of effective communication from our government, which is that the migrant laborers who moved out of their homes to different states, different parts of the daily wages by working in construction. They were suddenly without jobs, and they couldn't see themselves where they were they wanted to go back to their homes, at least they would probably get 1 square meal a day, water to drink, maybe toys that they could use, which is not also a factual information because they don't have these facilities available. So they were left in the lurch and they started, and since all transportation is brought to a grinding halt as well, they started walking thousands of miles, to get home, and we lost many lives along the way. Some of them fell asleep, on the roads, on the railway tracks, and they were run over by trains. Children died of hunger and thirst. So I think this time has been a very testing period for all of us. And also, since you brought up the issue of the positive outcomes, I would like to say it's been awakening in a way, because it's made us, each one of us made us realize our role in our micro environments, for example, our homes. What roles do we play now that we're all inside our homes, taking charge of ourselves, our immediate realities, trying to pitch in and help our communities. We step out of our homes, that people in need our help, and just helped us catapult ourselves into being the best we can at a time like this. I think that has been one of the most positive outcomes of the situation, where I see a lot of people coming forward to help, to share the right resources where money can be sent, money and time, volunteering time, goods in, groceries and clothes and base for people to survive. So people have found it in their hearts to, cook for laborers and go and drop off while still social distancing norms. So I think this self-awareness and this sort of, a concern that's risen in us, in all of us, as a result of this bad situation, has been immensely helpful, for a country like ours. So I see a lot of positivity around me. I see that brands even are trying to, get into a mode of panic relief marketing, because people went overboard with purchasing and just hoarding up on supplies and getting stores out of supplies. And so I see that there are brands who are now, for example, there's an example of Spotify, which is a little more global, to understand how Spotify changed their logo, with the mask, to help people understand the enormity of the situation. A local brand here in India, my students might relate to this, called Dunzo. And Dunzo is a company that lets you run errands. They drop off packages, pick up groceries for you, medicines, all those sorts of things. They changed their logo because they wanted to portray that the errand boys who run these errands for you, they come to your doorstep. You want to make sure that their hands are clean when they're delivering a package. So how does a brand communicate that? So right from a macro level to what's the changes that have come about in our environments, I see that there's been a lot of positivity, and I think one must focus on that in order to move on. Otherwise, it's easy to get into the rut of negativity, and So yeah, that's my 2 bit of contribution to today's discussion. Thank you, Yolanta.
Thank you, Ranjini. I totally agree with you that we also need to see positive things. And personally, I read about initiatives coming from young people. One of them is young psychologist, and during crisis, she launched an act on crisis. So there is lots of new potential coming also with the generation who is finishing now universities, and we definitely have this positive energy. Well, you also mentioned that for the government it was important to tell the truth. and also for the media to tell the truth. We have an interesting landscape, interesting discussion in media today, which it's not also only about traditional media, but social media as well. American president issuing his own restrictions regarding the Twitter and maybe Facebook, planning to increase responsibility of social networks for content because they start saying fake news. It's not true. And I would like to give the floor to Katarina. And could you please share with us what, in your eyes, is the future of PR professionals, the role, and dealing with traditional media, dealing with social media? Yeah, please join in.
Hello, everyone. I'd really like to pick up on some of the points Lena made earlier on, because what I really believe is that we've seen that COVID-19 has really emphasized communication as an essential service, and I believe it's been underestimated for a very long time, certainly by governments, but also by other key leaders. In Australia, what we've seen over the last few months, there's been very much a focus on upskilling, getting money into short courses, but all these short courses were around allied health, so you took in nursing, you took in teaching, but also IT science. But communication has completely flown under the radar, which was ironic, because at the time we've seen lots of miscommunication, patchy ad hoc communication that led to all kinds of problems within the country. We've seen a bit of a turnaround since, but we've seen people being extremely confused because of mixed messaging, not having clear guidelines and actually that structure they needed during that time of uncertainty. And we've seen big miscommunication amongst professionals as well, which ended up in one case of thousands of passengers disembarking from a COVID-infected cruise ship, straight onto public transport, straight onto planes overseas. And yeah, you can imagine what that resulted in. That's where bulk of our cases comes from. And a lot of that comes back to communication. And then I look across to our neighbours across the Tasman to New Zealand, which is quite an interesting counterpoint and example. And I do agree, not all New Zealanders might agree, but actually there's a lot of support in the country, because we've seen a lot of clear and concise communication from the Prime Minister over there, Jacinda Ardern, who's been very much emphasised kind of across the world as a leader. And what was really different there was that you had the very clear leadership, clear communication from someone who's got a background in communication and public relations, which I think really, really showed that different leadership and communication style. So you've had someone who all of a sudden was happy to embrace digital rather than hide behind anonymous Twitter accounts, which quite often are run by social media departments. She actually went online and did live chats, Q&A sessions on Facebook during lockdown period. She was happy to run press conferences for children to allow them to ask questions. So someone who's all of a sudden not just empathetic, but also decisive and present. And I think we've kind of missed that in leaders for a very long time. So what I see there is that this is an opportunity. COVID has really highlighted the potential of communication, clear and powerful communication. And I think it's time for us to move beyond that perception of spin, misleading practice, PR is a dark art. Yes, we still do see lots of examples of that. But we've also seen public relations, communications highlighted. It's essentially an essential service, something that's crucial to the health of the community. So quite often we talk about public relations and organisations. So I think we really need to look further at the role of public relations in society, and especially during a time like this. So really this provides GlobCom participants, any kind of future emerging leaders with lots of opportunities and a bright future, to embrace that potential and to move beyond that kind of murky perception of public relations, and to emphasise those crucial parts and to actually get recognised for the work that communication actually does. That's me.
Great, Katarina. Thank you for sharing with us actually both sides of PR. On the one side, we have the history of spin and of black, also techniques behind communication with this manipulation. but we also have the positive, the bright side of the communication, which is exactly very much related to leadership. And it is about actually doing what you say you do, and it's also about caring. It's about listening to people, trying to understand how they feel in this situation. If they have fear or anxiety, what to do, what do they need to feel better and to act better. Well, I would love to hear a question from our audience and from our young professionals. We have 5 minutes. I know you are all eager to start with your presentations, but please, if there is a question, could you share on a chat what in your eyes is important? What would you like to ask the professionals whom we have today? Personally, I learned my students, they love a lot when I speak about the mistakes that I made during my professional career. That's the most interesting part always. So one of the difficult, of course, situations was with dealing with media during crisis when there was an issue of a girl being kidnapped by her step-parents, and but at that moment, it was most difficult decision for the leader also to understand what is the situation for the president. And I learned that sometimes leaders, also very top leaders, they don't know, and they need a reliable source of information. So it really matters to say, yeah, I don't know, but I need good source of information, and then I can think of the scenario, what to do. And so maybe you, somebody of our speakers can also share their tip that comes from experience.
So I think in general, what we really can learn from this time is that need to be able to switch to different means of communication, different ways of communication, and that we just take away things that we are, in fact, a big group of people out there and a big community, and that we now should use all that we have learned from these COVID times to rebuild the economy in the best way possible. And that we can look at ourselves, be proud of our values, and take our energy, go out there and do and achieve whatever we want to do.
I would just add to that, grace and empathy in all brand communication. Every touch point, every piece of external communication that's going out is more important at times in crisis than any other point in time for a brand, for an individual, for any entity that is involved in communication. That the communication professionals, us, the folks speaking, you, the students who will be out in this field before you know it, needs to keep an eye on every bit of communication that goes out and make sure that there's grace and empathy all the way through, that there's concern, that it does not come off that your brand is looking to take advantage of the situation. There's this oftentimes within the organization, the sales and marketing groups look at this and say, oh, this is a great opportunity to sell more, to market more. And it's really the responsibility of the publicists and the communication practitioners to say, whoa, hold on a second. Let's make sure there's some grace and empathy there.
David?
I'd like to add to that a little bit, because I see the question from Amna just coming through in regards to promoting yourself. And just adding to David, I think it's that balance. If you are working in an area that's an expert on mental health, an expert on health in general, an expert on something that's related to the issue or the crisis, then by all means, don't promote yourself, but promote your expertise. Come out and talk about your expertise. If it's non-related, don't, because it's going to backfire. So people you're going to lose trust in people. But if this is your expertise, yes, it's a time to shine, but not to promote, but to demonstrate that you're a leader in the area.
And also, I would like to add some words. You know, people will remember how brands, governments, and employers behaved in the face of crisis, and companies and governments will be judged by what actions they took during the pandemic, or they will be positive emotional connections with those who were considerate, helpful, and socially responsible. So that's why humility, empathy, humanity is and will be essential in communication and behaviors as never before.
Thank you, Lina. And Anna also added another question. If it was for tourism in a country and you want to inform the world that this country is having it under control, is it a smart strategy to have a monthly update? So could you just, I think we have the last 2 minutes because we also need to make a short break before the next session. So any of the speakers, would you like to comment regarding COVID and tourism? Is it smart for country to have updates every month?
It really depends on the situation. I mean, many of the clients of Fleischmann Hillert, where I also work, have made incredibly good experiences with taking the CEO for regular updates, even more, not just monthly, but weekly during the times that was really hard. So it is a time, as has been said before, for the leaders to be there for people inside and outside the company.
I would say that the greatest human fear is the fear of the unknown. And if you don't know, if travelers don't know what's going on in a country, they're not going to go there. So, you know, transparency is good. It might not always be the easiest or the best news to go through there. I happen to work with a country, and it's exactly what we're doing is we're being transparent, and it seems to be working.
Just to add to that though, and that's exactly what David says, is that's transparency, being honest, being open, being transparent. But I would be very careful, the earlier part where it says to claim that the country has COVID under control. I'd be very careful there because we've seen too many examples where people have claimed that, and that's some major countries, and where it turned out not to be the case. So transparency, yes, but I would be very careful with grand claims.
Thank you, Katerina, and thank you everybody who participated in this discussion. And well, I'm really just excited, and I hope you are as excited, everybody, that we have those opportunities to share. And let's keep on doing that. So thank you, everybody, and applause to everybody. And good luck for young professionals. We really need your ideas, your energy, and your insights, your experience. So thank you, everybody, and till next time.
Hello. So I see I was muted, right? So it was no sense what I was saying. Okay. I want to thank the panelists again, and I wanna say that this has been wonderful and very high standards of what we're doing in our profession. I want to thank Jolanta especially for being this wonderful chair of the session, and for obviously Lina from Coca-Cola, among our Daniel, Virginie, Katrina. We have someone who worked very early today, Dr. Richard from Emerson. Obviously, this has been very nice.